Everyone is drawn to the Gemini flame because it doesn't look like a rule-bound fire. It looks like dancing light, moving faster than your doubts, warmer than your loneliness, clever enough to make your pain laugh at itself. You don't approach a Gemini the way you approach other people. You find yourself already inside their weather, already carried by a wind that remembers ancient roads and undoes the knots you forgot you tied. The first contact is a shimmer, a voice that turns ideas into rivers, a gaze that feels like a lantern swung through a midnight forest. You think, finally, someone who can meet me where I truly live, between thoughts, between breaths, between the life I have and the life I keep promising myself. But the dark truth, the one the soul whispers long after parties have dissolved and the night has taken off its perfume, is that Gemini is not only light. Gemini is the whole window, the warm room you saw from the street and the storm it holds back. We love the quicksilver, the curiosity, the wit, the way they can translate pain into clarity, fear into a plan. But what shocks us is the twin shadow, the sudden silence after orchestras of conversation, the retreat after intimacy, the pivot after a promise we heard, but they never meant to make. The magnet in them is real. So is the mirror. Gemini shows us who we are when we're brave and who we are when we're afraid of being seen. If this message is already stirring the part of you that wants truth more than comfort, take a breath with me. This space, Astro Gemini, is for souls who want to be honest about their patterns and tender with their growth. If you feel at home here, subscribe now so this light finds you again when the path gets complicated. And you need a friend who speaks the language of stars. Mercury runs in Gemini, like quicksilver in antique veins, communicating, connecting, collecting, turning the world into letters and letters into lifelines. Their mind is a beehive. Questions pollinate questions, and suddenly there is honey on the tongue of every conversation. You will taste that sweetness and feel it as hope. Maybe this person understands me. Maybe someone finally knows how to get from the surface to the center without stopping for permission. You're not wrong. Gemini can walk through walls built of expectations. They can find the door in any labyrinth, but that passageway has a cost. The one who finds every door will also find the exits. The one who knows every language knows how to remain untranslatable when the heart demands a single, definitive word. There is a sacred reason for this. The twin is not a mask. The twin is a medicine. Oneself to survive, oneself to grow, oneself to witness, oneself to risk, oneself to hold the wound, oneself to keep moving when the world is heavy and the path is cold. People get shocked because they mistake the medicine for a performance. They think the second face is a betrayal, when often it is simply the face required to make it through a room that would bruise a more literal soul. The dark truth is not that Gemini is two-faced. It is that most of us are one-faced and terrified, and the sight of someone who can shapeshift reminds us of the changes we've postponed. It begins early for many. Geminis, the discovery that words can build a bridge over a river no one else can swim. A child learns to be clever to survive the unspoken currents in a house where love is present, but fear has the loudest voice. They become ambassadors between moods, translators of parent hearts, interpreters of the family weather. They learn that humor can move furniture that anger cannot. They learn that story can take the temperature down. And so Gemini grows a beautiful skill, emotional cartography. They can map your ocean while you're still insisting you're a lake. The shock people feel later, in friendship, in love, in collaboration, often comes from unfinished grief. Gemini didn't just learn how to entertain. They learned how to adapt to rooms that wouldn't adapt to them. Adaptation becomes religion. But adaptation has a shadow, the temptation to keep moving rather than be moved. The temptation to keep talking rather than say the thing that ends the conversation and begins the life. If you've loved a Gemini, you've tasted that edge, the almost confession that retreats into a joke, the almost plan that dissolves into another possibility, the promise of someday that floats like a lantern you can never catch. And yet stay with me, this is not duplicity. This is pressure. Gemini feels the world at the speed of thought and the weight of choice at the speed of consequence. Their intelligence is a blessing and a burden. That's why boundaries, language, and timing matter so much in Gemini relationships. You cannot hold a wind by accusing it of being air. You hold a wind by building a landscape it wants to visit, by speaking in terms precise enough to honor freedom and deep enough to invite commitment. Say what is true, not what is dramatic. Ask what is needed, not what is owed. Create a ritual of clarity. What did you hear me say? What are we agreeing to by Friday? Where does your yes live and where does your no begin? If this resonates in your chest, if it's loosening something that's been tight for too long, tap like so other seekers can find it. And if you want to help us keep creating these soul-anchored guides, support Astro Gemini, become a channel member for exclusive videos and early access. The dark truth beneath the magnetism is this. Gemini is a mirror for your unintegrated self. You're drawn because you want to meet the parts of you you've kept in the attic with the chandeliers and the letters you never mailed. You're shocked because the mirror doesn't lie. When Gemini goes quiet, what part of you becomes loud? When they pivot, what part of you refuses to dance? When they ask 100 questions, what part of you realizes you've been answering to a past that isn't here anymore? Gemini is not chaos. Gemini is the rehearsal for your authentic life. The quick changes, the sudden insights, the pivot from tears to plans. That is the soul learning to keep up with its own becoming. To the Gemini listening, your speed is not a crime. It is a current. But currents carve cliffs if they never rest. There are moments when your gift of translation must become a vow of presence. Not every room needs your bridge. Some rooms need you to stand still and let the silence translate the truth you've been outpacing. You are not obligated to be fascinating. You are invited to be here. You are not responsible for holding all the possibilities at once. You are free to close a door and discover the home behind it. To the ones who love Gemini, do not punish them for offering you the key to your own mind. If their questions feel like a storm, ask which of your structures is built from fear. If their quiet feels like abandonment, ask whether you've confused reassurance with intimacy. If their charm scares you, ask whether you were waiting for permission to live brilliantly, and now that permission has arrived, you'd rather blame the messenger than step into your power. The dark truth about being drawn and then shocked is that the shock is often your awakening. Here is an image to keep: Gemini as a lighthouse with two beams. One beam sweeps the sea of strangers looking for stories to bring home. The other beam turns inward, illuminating the inner shore, the journal, the morning cup, the unglamorous devotion to a craft or practice that no one applauds. The balance between these lights is the Gemini path. When the outer beam dominates, they become applause chasers, novelty addicted, allergic to depth. When the inner beam dominates, they become reclusive scholars, verbose in solitude and uncertain in public. The art is to let both beams move in rhythm, to let connection serve clarity and clarity serve connection. If you're traveling this path and you want a companion who speaks your language, hit like to keep this conversation alive in your feed. And because community turns insight into momentum, here's a small request. Share your date of birth and zodiac sign in the comments and tell us one line about the chapter you're in. We read what you write, and often your stories become the constellations we navigate by. There is also a practical side to the mystery. Gemini needs ritual more than most, because ritual is the container that allows improvisation to be medicine instead of avoidance. Morning pages that catch the runaway thoughts. Evening reflections that return the borrowed energy. Clear agreements written down. Time, place, task, so the mind can rest from rehearsing infinite paths. Honest check-ins that ask, is my curiosity serving intimacy or escaping it? And yes, the body. Breath like a metronome, walks that let the thoughts stretch their legs without dragging the heart behind, hands on a craft that doesn't care about applause. Presence is not a prison. It is the music that lets your changes. Learn to dance together. Support Astro Gemini. Become a channel. Member for exclusive videos and early access. What? About love. The place where the magnetism becomes a myth we keep, retelling even when it breaks our hearts. In love, Gemini is a room with windows on every side. The view keeps changing, but the foundation is real. If you require certainty at the speed of fear, you will misdiagnose their windows as exits. If you can love discovery as an act of devotion, you will find that Gemini returns again and again to the same core: loyalty to truth, loyalty to the conversation that refuses to die, loyalty to the future you build word by word. They may not say forever with dramatic vows. They will prove it by staying curious about you when the world encourages boredom. They will prove it by re-choosing you when the script says to improvise and escape. The shock we talk about, the jolt after the draw, arrives when we ask a sign of air to carry the weight of our earthbound fears. We ask them to be our closure instead of being our courage. We ask them to be our certainty instead of meeting them as partners in a living inquiry. But closure is a door you close from the inside. Certainty is the breath you place over your own heart and call it promise. Gemini can bring you there. They can show you the door and translate the vow. But they cannot and should not become the answer to a question you refuse to ask yourself. So here is the soft challenge offered with love. If you are drawn to Gemini, be brave enough to be shocked into honesty, not into judgment. Use the mirror. Notice the part of you that wakes up in their presence. Protect it, grow it. Tell the truth faster. Ask for what you want without rehearsing your apology. When they pivot, do not chase. Pivot toward your integrity. When they offer 20 ideas, pick one and build a table between you where the two of you can return and witness the difference between a theory and a life. And to Gemini, the closing blessing: your mind is a wing, yes, but your heart is the sky that wing belongs to. Let the wing rest there. Let the sky hold it. The world needs your synthesis, your way of turning fragments into conversations that heal. But you also need your own depth, the silence that remembers your original name. Say less when less is true. Stay longer when presence is the miracle. Choose slowly when the choice is holy. Let curiosity become commitment, not because you were trapped, but because you were moved. If this journey spoke to the hidden part of you that's ready to step into a wiser rhythm, subscribe so future messages find you exactly when you need them most. If this helped you breathe a little easier, like the video. It tells the currents to carry it to someone still searching in the dark. And if you're feeling called to walk closer with us, support Astro Gemini. Become a channel member for exclusive videos and early access. Before you go, share your date of birth and zodiac sign in the comments. And tell us one moment where you were drawn to someone's light and then shocked into a deeper truth. Your story might be the lantern for someone else's night. If you want to hear everything the universe has to say to you, watch these other videos on our channel.